how to build wealth in real estate starting in your teens and 20s. This is what I'm all about. I'm 21 years old. I started learning about real estate when I was like 16, 17, started going to real estate events, learning how to set myself up for life through real estate. So in this video today, I'm sharing with you what I've learned over time in real estate about how to build wealth, how to buy rental properties, how to create passive income, how to get rich and wealthy starting in your teens and 20s. So let's talk about it. Hey, what's going on? My name is vay.namae. I'm a real estate agent, investor, and real estate content creator, if you will, here in Seattle, Washington. So let me start out by saying that this is in no way the end-all be-all method. It's the only way to get rich, the only way to get wealthy. There are tons of ways to make money and build wealth and add to your net worth. I'm talking about real estate because this is my niche. This is what I know. This is what I've spent my time focusing on. And I know it's going to work. So I'm still starting out, like I said. I'm still learning as I go too. But so far, this is what I've learned, and hopefully you can take away something that's going to help you too. And if this video does turn out to be helpful, please leave a like and subscribe so I can keep putting this content out. So let's get into it. Step number one to start this real estate journey and start building wealth through real estate is decide, what do you want your life to look like? When I was a kid, my parents taught me you have to have goals. You want to be the employer, not an employee. They taught me to be entrepreneurial, own your own business, don't work for someone else. Why would you spend your whole life making someone else rich and have some kind of investing plan to make your money work for you so that you don't have to work forever? Were we put on this earth to work for someone else for 60 years and then die? I don't think so. And it was really a privilege for me to grow up with this advice and knowledge around me, because I know now that a lot of people aren't raised that way and they're not given the opportunities that I was given. People are told to go to college, get a good job, be stable, and don't take risks, don't buy property. How many from the previous generation lost their houses in the crash and now are not even touching the real estate anymore? I believe it's up to our generation to learn from past generations' mistakes and create better futures for ourselves. So that's kind of what I realized really early on, like my early teens. And when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and went to Tom Ferry seminars and started learning from other investors, I figured out that if I don't want to work forever, I need some kind of cash flow coming in. And I think it was my mom who kind of sprung the idea on me initially, is to buy rental properties. So if you have enough rental properties creating cash flow for however much you want to make per month, then you can stop working. You have the rental properties to support you. So that's where I started. And I was like, so I need to make money to buy rental properties and create this cash flow, right? So the name of the game is financial freedom. How can we become financially free? How do I have the option to not work? I'm not really concerned about retiring young or anything like that, because I always want to be involved in doing something good for the world. So I basically decided that I want the option to work or not work by the time I'm 25. I'm 21 right now. I left high school at 18, right? I skipped college. I'll talk about that too, to go into real estate, buy properties, and then achieve that option by 25. Freedom, option, choice. So I'm going to go over numbers and qualification and the exact detailed step-by-step plan in a minute. But big picture, why get started when you're young? What's the point? I hear it every once in a while. Vayna, I'm in my 20s. This is the time to have fun, blah, blah. I don't want to work. I don't want to hustle. I don't want to grind. I want to travel. I want to just hang out and chill and do whatever. I mean, yeah, but wouldn't you rather do that with money? And I'm saying that you can do all this in 3 to 5 years. Why should you start when you're young? This is the lowest risk time of your life. I think Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it all the time. This is the time when you're living at home, you don't have children, you don't have a ton of bills, don't have crazy responsibilities. This is the time to take big risks, make big moves, and there is something to fall back on if you fail. But I think this is the best time, like literally, logistically, and in your mindset, because if you don't have fear of failure and there's not that much that can go wrong by doing this, then you're gonna have a lot more opportunity and you're gonna go after the things you want a lot more. So let's talk about what is the strategy in real estate to start building wealth. Like I said, rental properties, and even in rental properties, this is a really huge niche. You can do all kinds of strategies. There's a BRRRR strategy, there's house hacking strategy, which we're going to highlight today. You can do apartment buildings, you can do seller finance, creative deals. There's a lot of ways. I am a big fan of the house hacking strategy, and here's why. So if you don't know what house hacking is, it's my favorite because I think it is the most accessible for the everyday person to get into. So what you do is you buy a multifamily property. This can also be done with regular single family homes, and you buy the property low down because you're going to live in it. You're going to live in one unit, you're going to rent the other ones, and then that rent is going to cover your mortgage. So you're living for free or for very little, or even cash flowing, just depending on how much a property is, what your mortgage is, and what the rents are. And you have this appreciating asset, and you only need to live in it for 1 year. So after the year, you can go do this again low down. The key to the strategy is that you can put 3.5% to 5% down with an FHA or conventional loan on the property, so you don't need much money to start, because that's always like the number one objection. I don't have the money to buy property, right? There's a couple of other things too, and we're going to talk about all the barriers to entry and get through all of these things. But the key is we want to buy multifamily properties so that we can stack our rental portfolio. So a multifamily property is either a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, and common types are different for every single market, and the price ranges are different for every single market. So this is a very, very basic example that I'm giving you, and the numbers are going to be totally different based on where you're from, what your interest rate is at the time, how your market's doing, what the rents are. But I want to show you this so that you can get an idea of how the process works. So I'm in Seattle, and the multifamilies are like $600 to $1.5 million. And that's Seattle and surrounding areas. And we have duplex, triplex, and fourplexes here all over the place. And in this example, we're only looking at fourplexes. But just know that this can work duplex, it can work triplex. Again, the numbers are gonna be totally different. If you're in Seattle and you wanna start doing this, my information is below so we can figure out the strategy that's gonna work for you. But let's take a look at this. So let's say you save up your down payment, you got your qualifications in order, and you go buy a fourplex in the first year. So there's 4 units in the property, you're living in one, and let's say the other 3 units rent out for $1,500 each. These are pretty reasonable rents for here in Seattle. And let's say you bought the property for $600,000. On this property, your mortgage is $4,200, and the rents are paying you about $4,500. So that covers your mortgage payment. You're living for free. Now remember, you're gonna have maintenance costs, you're gonna have maybe property management costs if you decide, you'll have taxes, insurance, etc. So you might be coming out of pocket $100 or $200 a month, but hey, you're paying $100 or $200 a month, and you now have an appreciating asset. That's the best thing about real estate, is that it appreciates in value, and it's very predictable compared to like stocks or crypto. That's what I like a lot about it. The other thing too, that if I don't mention, people will come for me in the comments, is you have to have reserves. You are basically a landlord now. You are renting out other units. You want to make sure that you have money just in case that a unit isn't rented, or you don't get paid rent, or there is a big repair. You want to make sure you have money to cover that. Typically 6 months of rent in reserve, which for $1,500 is about $6,000. That's a safe number to have. So you bought this property for $600,000. 3.5% down is like between $18,000 and $24,000, right? And now you're living for free. So you had to save the 18, 20 grand to buy the property, but now you're living for free. And then let's look at what happens in year 2. So you bought the fourplex, you're living in it for free. All 3 units are rented, you're chilling. 1 year passes and you're eligible again to buy another fourplex, 5% down, or as little as 3.5% down, depending on what kind of loan you use. But let's say 5% is conservative. So next year, let's say we go for a better property. It's a little more expensive, but it's got higher rents. We go and buy an $800,000 fourplex, and the units are renting for $2,000 each. We're living in one of them, so we've got $6,000 coming in rent, and our mortgage payment is about $5,600. So that's still positive. Now we're at $400. We're living in 1 unit, and again, the mortgage is covered with a little bit of money on top. Now remember, this is your second property. So the first one you moved out of, you're now renting the unit that you were living in for another $1,500, and your mortgage is still the same at $4,200. So now you're getting an extra $1,500, and that first fourplex that you bought last year is now cash flowing $1,800. Pretty sweet deal. So you've got $1,800 on your fourplex that you just moved out of, and you've got about $400 on the one that you just moved into. So year 2, you're cash flowing $2,200 positive. And if you bought in a good area, the first property appreciated in value, maybe around $660 now from the $600 that you bought. That adds to your equity that you can pull out of or sell later. And then year 3, we do it all again. We go for another fourplex. Let's say we go for $1 million property this time, and the other 3 units are renting for $2,500 each. We've got $7,500 in rent, and our mortgage on $1 million is about $7,000, 5% down. So we're cash flowing $500. But then we were renting out the unit that we've been living in for the past year for another $2,000 in income. The mortgage is still $5,600 on that second fourplex. So with $8,000 in rent, that one's cash flowing $2,400. First fourplex is still cash flowing $1,800. So by year 3, as you can see, we've got $4,700 in cash flow and about $200 grand in equity from those first 2 fourplexes appreciating value. So already in 3 years, $4,700 in cash flow. Again, very general example, but it's all possible, right? And it's totally feasible, it's legal. It's a great strategy, and you only needed 5% down on each of these properties. And then by year 4, I won't go through all the numbers because I'm hoping you get the gist by now, but you're cash flowing about $7,700 in this example with over $400,000 in equity. That's your net worth right there. That is wealth in real estate. Vayna, you can't do this in LA. Of course you can't. LA is too expensive. Now, I'm in Seattle, so I don't even want to hear it, but what you can do is you can buy a single family and rent out the rooms. It's going to be a little cheaper, or buy somewhere else. Chances are, if you live in a major city, I'm guessing that there's a city not too far from you where you can do this and cash flow effectively. And the thing is, like we just saw, you can buy $1 million house or $1 million fourplex and still cash flow as long as the rents cover the mortgage. You can't live for free or cash flow on the house hack if the rents don't cover the mortgage. But I mean, hey, if you're already used to paying rent anyway, you might as well buy a house, put some tenants in there to lower your costs, and just pay whatever's left over so that you have this appreciating asset. Don't forget that buying is always better than renting. So how do we get started doing this? We need some money. I don't care what anyone says. All of these no money down people, other people's money people, you need money to make smart investments in real estate. And anyone who tells you differently is probably lying. So let's talk about it. The other 3 things that you need to qualify for traditional financing, like to buy this type of property, is going to be a 620 credit score, less than 50% debt to income ratio, or as low as possible debt to income ratio as you can. And then here's the big one, 2 years of work history. So when I was 18 years old, I had no work history. I had just got my first credit card and I didn't have debt. So I had the debt to income thing going for me. I'm guessing that the audience I'm speaking to doesn't have a whole lot of debt. I'm hoping. But what it means is that your debt should not exceed more than 50% of what you're making. And the more debt you have, the less you're going to get qualified on a house. So it's best to keep your debt as low as possible when you can. So when I was 18 years old and I decided that, yes, I want to do house hacking, let me do my research. How do I get started? Here it is. I decided I need to get that 2 years of work history going, right? I became a real estate agent. You can get a corporate job. You can work a W-2. You can work retail. Might take a little longer to save up the money. You can become an entrepreneur. You can do stocks, whatever you want to do. Get your work history together. Pay your taxes. Don't write off too much. I had to make sure I wasn't writing off too much so that my income looked higher and I would get approved for more house. That's how it worked. So I went the real estate agent route. I'm not encouraging anybody to become a real estate agent. I have tons of videos for those who do want to become a real estate agent. But the point here is that you need a job to get that qualifying work history and to save money to buy the property. How much money do you need? I highly recommend shooting for 5 to 10% of your target purchase price. So if you're looking at $400,000 properties, you want around $20,000 to $40,000 saved to start buying. It more than covers your 3.5% or 5% down payment, closing costs, which is solid 2 to 3% of your purchase unless you get the seller to pay for it. And then those reserves, which is money just in case anything goes wrong. You don't want to get upside down and you don't want to go broke trying to do this. Let's make that clear. That's why I say minimum 5%, because if you can buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex, 3.5% down, and then you have 1.5% closing costs or whatever, you can do it for 5% of the purchase price. But of course, the more money you have, the less risk you face. So $400,000, that's $20,000 to $40,000, right? If it's like in Seattle where it's 800 or $1 million, then you want to be in the $40,000 to $100,000 range of money saved down. So if you're in a cheaper market, you can probably get by working a normal job. If you are in a more expensive market like me and you want to get into this as fast as possible, we need to get creative on your income. What I love the most and kind of why I got into real estate is the flexibility of the job and the fact that there's no cap on the income you can make. Everything you make is in direct correlation to how hard you work. So I worked pretty freaking hard that first year. I mean, I still work pretty hard. And like I said, if you want to go the real estate agent route, I've got all the videos to help you on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe and get that money saved. So I started a separate account when I was new and I would put half of my checks into that account every time I got paid. So I made 100 grand my first year. First year I had 50 grand saved and I couldn't spend 50 grand as a 19-year-old if I tried. So I had a good amount of money and I was ready. Now remember, we need 2 years of work history. Now quick note on the work history is that if you are going into some sort of corporate job that requires a degree, some lenders will take that college history as part of your work history and some will even take a job offer letter as work history. So even if you haven't started working yet, but you have a job offer letter, then you can use that to qualify for a loan. You could do it as soon as you start your job. For me, real estate agent, independent contractor, I definitely needed to have my 2 years of 1099s and tax returns so that I could get qualified. So like I said, I started selling real estate when I was 19. I'm 21 now, and I bought my first property this year. So we're on our way. Now, credit score was a little bit of a hurdle for me because when you're young, you don't have a long credit history, which is what people typically look for, or what lenders typically look for. So I had to make sure that I was being very diligent about using my credit effectively and making sure that it was increasing as fast as possible. So when I was 18, I got my first credit card. I was spending no more than 20% of my credit limit. I was spending on it to build that credit history and I was paying it off in full every month. And over the next couple of years, I was accumulating more credit cards. I bought a car, so I had a car loan. That helped my credit. The whole basis of credit is that you're showing that you can pay the money back, and that's what your score indicates. So the more you take money money out and the more successfully you pay it back, the better your credit score will be. So work history, credit score, down payment, you're good to go. So that's the gist of how you can start house hacking and building wealth through real estate in your late teens and early 20s. It's gonna be really important to make smart decisions. And even if you don't make a ton of money, you can manage your money very wisely and get this through. Some states even have grants where they'll give you the down payment for free. So definitely do your research, talk to lenders, become friends with real estate agents and loan professionals so that you can set yourself up to do this as quickly as possible. And the reason I've made buying property my whole thing is because the dirt is not getting any cheaper, you guys. Houses are getting more expensive every single year. We hear stories all the time, or I hear stories all the time, of how someone bought their property in the 80s or the 90s in Seattle for like $50,000 and now it's worth $1 million. That's crazy. They paid $50,000 for their property and now it's worth $1 million that they can cash out and do whatever they want. So I figure if we can buy a bunch of properties, hold them for a long, long time, don't flip them, don't sell them unless you have to or unless it's not a good deal, buy good investments and keep them for a long time. That is how you get in the top 1%. That's how you get to stop working. That's how you can enjoy time with your friends and your family, your loved ones, and do what you truly want to do. If you work in real estate or you choose to enter the real estate industry, this isn't related to house hacking, but you can get very caught up with wanting to catch up to other people, wanting to be the best in what you do, wanting to be the #1 agent, the top agent in your state, the best investor, own 1,000 units. But if you think to yourself, what do I really want and what is it going to take for me to get there? It's usually a lot simpler than what you thought it was. So with that being said, that is the house hacking strategy in a nutshell. That is what I'm doing to build wealth in real estate and to build cash flow in the next 5 years. I post everything I do all the time on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, so you know I'm the real deal. I don't claim to be anything perfect or that I know exactly what I'm doing because mistakes definitely have to be made. And I want to end out this video by saying this is not for everyone. If you are willing to work hard, you can create massive results. That's kind of like the general norm. But this is what I'm doing. It's going to make me a millionaire in the next 5 years. I'm going to keep buying investment properties. I'm house hacking and doing burst strategy at the same time. Those are like my two breads and butters, if you will. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it helped, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to see when my next video comes out. I'm going to be doing a lot of case studies like on the property that I bought earlier this year. I'm going to have a lot more content rolling out about what I'm doing. And I'm so grateful for all of your support. It helps me keep this channel running without charging you guys or creating a BS course. So keep staying with it and good luck.